What's up, everyone out there in internet land? This is Flobo Sought on Netflix, the show where we go into the deep archives of Netflix and really come up with some of the hidden gems that are on the platform. I tried to get some recent Netflix originals because, all these other movies can be taken off the platform, put on the platform, that sort of thing. But these Netflix originals, the ones that will more likely be on the platform. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast and all the other episodes of this podcast, whether or not you're doing the videos on YouTube or the audio version on your favorite podcasting device. I thank you because this podcast here is listened to from New Zealand all the way over to Saudi Arabia. Gotta give a shout out to the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Angola for putting us on your charts this week. I see you. I appreciate you. This one's a little different because this is the show we're going to talk about Suburra Blood and Rome, or Suburra La Serie, or series for those you internationally. Something I watched before the podcast. A lot of times I come across the movies and content afterward. I go, oh, this would be a good show to talk about on Flobo on Netflix. But I realized that before the podcast existed, I was kind of a Netflix junkie in my own right. And Suburra Blood and Rome came from a very, very important time in my life. I had a gig out in Italy from Los Angeles, first time going to Italy. I just figured I would learn Italian by immersion by listening and watching Italian programming. Now, I know full well that a gangster film was not going to be the way Rome nearly is, but I figured there were some cool ways of saying some phrases. I could probably pick that up. Long story short, the answer is no. I went to Italy, but I was totally lost. But thankfully, since it's Europe, I wasn't completely lost, and I had a background in Spanish, so some things may not make sense in English, but it totally made sense if I translate it to Spanish first and into Italian. But that's besides the point. That is neither here nor there. Suburra is based on the movie of the same name. This is why the international title is Suburra La Series, or Suburra La Serie, or Serie. I'm not sure how to pronounce that in Italian. And it's adapted from the movie Suburra, which came out 2 years prior to the first season of Suburra Blood on Rome. 3 seasons of this show, and I think I have the episode count here: 10 episodes in season 1, 8 episodes in season 2, and 6 episodes in season 3. And I want to go into why I like this series so much. For someone who doesn't really know much about Italian culture, at least the modern Italian culture. Of course, I grew up around enough Italian American representations of what Italians were. We come from New York. It was kind of cool to see how cosmopolitan Rome is, and how, even though Rome is a world away, that city fictionally is dealing with the same problems we have here in the United States in Los Angeles, with size, sprawl, people trying to get on top, people trying to find their own prosperity, figuring out what is corruption, if you're trying to feed your family. These are universal themes. It's kind of cool to see it in my perspective, a foreign country. Granted, if you're Italian, Rome isn't foreign at all, but I really like that. When I was in high school, I read a book, which ended up being a really flat movie, called Bonfire of the Vanities. And it really was not necessarily the most entertaining read, but I was always a sucker from that point on of those kind of sprawling stories where we get different perspectives at the same time, concurrently, simultaneously, how we deal with a certain problem or situation. So that, or NBC had a drama in the early 2000s called Boomtown is another example of that. I was a big fan of Crash when it came out. I know people now kind of deride it as one of the most undeserving quote unquote best pictures ever, but I kind of like the idea of different storylines coming together, interacting, but not in like a Love Actually kind of way. I got kind of burnt out by those kind of movies. So when you talk about the main idea of the series, about organized crime versus the strength of the church and Catholicism versus the police versus young budding politicians trying to work their way up the ladder versus the normal citizens just trying to make ends meet. The first season was completely interesting because not only do you have the cosmopolitan city aspect of Rome, you have its reach of the old times with the Vatican and the popes and cardinals being involved in this sweeping crime drama with even subversive things, and even outside of Rome in Osteria, where there was like this countryside aspect to it. To me, that was fascinating, and I was hooked, line and sinker. I mentioned this in a bunch of other shows, especially Lupin. I tend to watch shows that are in a foreign language subtitled, and so I couldn't do it with English dub. Like, I wanted to get the full thing, the full immersion. So it transported me to that time, and I really like that sweeping thing. Season 1 is dang near perfection. I think if you just have time just to give it a shot, I think by 2 episodes, season 1, you'll be hooked about the sprawling way of this thing kind of reaches out. Whether it's talking about the Sinti or Romani people, whether it's about the not in my backyard Italians, whether it's about the influence of the Catholic faith and the Vatican on the everyday life of Rome. It's very familiar in how sweeping and dangerous a city can be, but very unique for a city that's caught between two time periods like Rome. And being there afterwards, after season 1 and 2, I believe, it was fantastic. Now I watched this during the pandemic. Pretty much the first season, consumed it pretty quickly. Season 2, a little bit more maturity. Things have to fall off just quite a little bit with some of the killings off of some characters or of note that really kind of shifts the dynamic of the show. And then by season 3, it became a different program altogether. I don't want to get too much of specifics because I don't want to ruin it. But by the time the third season came around, it became a much more narrowed focus between two characters and their specific quests, as opposed to the giant sweeping drama that really was the hook, what really worked for the show in the first season and a half. This was the first Italian language drama produced by Netflix. That's their global strategy now. Is being able to set up things in native languages with native talent and just finding ways to translate and dub. And it's been profitable for them. I mentioned this a bunch of times. And the second time today, I'll make a Lupin reference. One of my close friends, Austin Warren, voices the English dub of Lupin for England, so for American and English audiences. So it's pretty cool to see there's a whole other market being supported in this globalized strategy that Netflix is doing. This is why they kind of raise your subscription fee to $1 every time you're not looking, because that stuff costs money. Suburra Blood and Rome is something I really, really enjoyed at the top. It kind of peters out, in my opinion. I think this first season is great. The first 2 seasons tell a complete story. You may not like how it ended if you ended at season 2, but it is kind of complete if you do season 2. Season 3 is more or less an epilogue. It's very apparent that's the case. There are 6 episodes in that third season, and even then, I felt like it could have been served by a 3-episode arc or a extended movie or something along those lines. Rotten Tomatoes doesn't have a rating for this one, but IMDb gives it a 7.5, and I think that's fair. I would have complained. I would have said, no, man, definitely 8.5. But as it progressed, I think overall now that it's over, now it's been out for about a year now, Netflix says the show is canceled. I think 7.5 is definitely an accurate score, meaning it is way above average, I think it's in that great territory, but just shy of being one of those legendary shows you have to see. Please check it out. Let me know what you think. Suburra Blood and Rome, or Suburra La Serie, available now on that Netflix platform. This one here was kind of an impromptu episode. Let me know if you want me to talk about more series or movies work for you. Comment below if you're on that YouTube, or make sure you hit that contact button if you're listening on your favorite audio device, or hit me up on that Twitter at Flobo Boyce. I would love to hear from you. But until next time, as always, this is Flobo on Netflix.